There are cars born to become icons. There are others that only shine for a brief moment before disappearing, leaving behind a question that has never been answered. But it is very rare that we encounter a name that fulfills both of these things at the same time. Today, we will trace the footprints of a name that has nearly been forgotten in American automotive history. But for those who have ever known it, this is one of the finest Ford models ever built. Beautiful, fast, rare, bold, and most importantly, it was born at a time when America was looking towards the stars, both literally and figuratively. That car was born during the height of futuristic design, was endowed by Ford with the most powerful weapon under the hood, and even played an important role in the NASCAR racing circuit. But after just 2 years, it was mysteriously killed off, with no official explanation. But to understand why Ford placed everything into this car and then quickly withdrew as if it had never happened, we need to rewind to the early 1960s, when America was living in a real-life dream, the dream of reaching out to the cosmos. Since the Soviet Union launched the Sputnik satellite into orbit, America entered an intense space race with the mission not only to explore space, but also to assert its technological and cultural strength. From movies and fashion to industrial design, inspiration from space was everywhere. And of course, the automotive industry was no exception. Ford understood that if they wanted to capture the hearts of young Americans, they needed to create cars that were not only powerful, but also embodied the shape of the future. That's why they chose names like Galaxy, Sunliner, Skyliner, and especially the name we are talking about today, Starliner. That name wasn't just for show. It represented a completely new design philosophy, a style that Ford wanted to associate with the space age. Glamorous, modern, and heavily influenced by aerodynamics. But what exactly did that car look like? And why did its design leave such a strong impression? From the very first glance, the Starliner was unlike any Ford that had come before it. It looked like a spacecraft that had landed on the streets of America, both unfamiliar and irresistibly captivating. The most distinctive feature was the roof, the long, low fastback style that curved down to the rear, creating a graceful aerodynamic shape like a jet plane. At a time when most American cars still carried the boxy, heavy designs of the 1950s, the Starliner seemed like a creature from the future. Every detail on the car served to reinforce that modern look. The deeply slanted rear window, flowing seamlessly from the A-pillar to the back of the car, created a continuous, smooth feeling. The crescent-shaped taillights, the 3 chrome rings on the C-pillar, everything echoed the space age. This wasn't just a car for driving. It was a design statement. However, because it was so different, the Starliner also divided public opinion at the time. Some in the public and press thought the design was odd and too risky. But for car enthusiasts today, it's that very daringness that has made the Starliner one of the most sought-after and revered Fords. But Ford didn't stop at just the looks. They put something even more important into the Starliner: the power under the hood, something that would take this car into an entirely different playing field. A car with a design like the Starliner, running on a weak engine, would be like a rocket, attached to a fan motor. Fortunately, Ford understood this. By 1960, the Starliner was equipped with the V8 352 FE engine, part of Ford's latest generation of engines at the time, the FE series, which replaced the outdated Y block. But what made this engine stand out was Ford's approach to tiering it by performance, catering to different customer needs. The standard version was a 2-barrel engine with 220 horsepower, enough for smooth, everyday driving. But for those wanting a bit more excitement, They could opt for the 4-barrel version, which increased the output to 300 horsepower. Then there was the high-performance version, the one that transformed the Starliner from a luxurious coupe into a real speed machine. It was still the 352 FE, but fine-tuned, with better fuel delivery and a higher compression ratio, producing 360 horsepower and 380 pound-feet of torque. Notably, this was the first time a Ford engine had more horsepower than cubic inches, a proud milestone in an era when every automaker was racing to boost power. And it wasn't just a number on paper. The Motor Life magazine tested the standard version. It took almost 20 seconds to complete a quarter mile. But the high-performance version only needed 14.8 seconds, a true leap forward. A full-size coupe that could outrun many sports cars of the time. For many, the 352 high-performance version was more than enough. But Ford wasn't done yet. They knew that if they wanted to truly enter the horsepower race heating up in the early 1960s, they needed something stronger, fiercer, and rarer. So, at the end of 1961, Ford quietly introduced a new version of the Starliner with the 390 V8 engine, a completely different 6.4-liter engine, more powerful than anything that had ever been in the engine bay of a Galaxy before. Official power output: 375 horsepower. But that wasn't all. This version came with a 4-speed manual transmission, mounted on the floor, instead of the classic 3-speed column-mounted shifter. A small change in shifter position, but for car enthusiasts of that era, it was a statement. This wasn't just a luxurious car for cruising the streets. It was a true muscle car, born to win from the starting line. But that wasn't Ford's final bomb. Some special dealerships, catering to select customers, offered an ultra-rare upgrade package, the Tri-Power carburetor set, consisting of 3 carburetors working in parallel. Technically, this kit wasn't factory installed. It was left in the trunk of the car. That's right, you bought the car, got the keys, and also received a weapon package hidden in the back, ready to be installed whenever you wanted to unleash true power. When the Tri-Power kit was installed, the horsepower jumped to 401, an enormous number for a civilian car at the time. Technically, the 1961 Starliner with the 390-plus Tri-Power was a beast. But because it was produced in such limited quantities and wasn't heavily promoted, very few people today know of its existence. You could say this was Ford's first secret muscle car, reserved only for those who were sophisticated enough to recognize the power lying dormant beneath that sleek exterior. And not long after, the Starliner began to prove that it wasn't just powerful, it was also incredibly fast, especially when it hit the real racetrack. Did you know? At that time, American automakers weren't just racing to create powerful cars for the streets. They were also using them to win on the NASCAR racetrack, where everything was pushed to the limit. And the Starliner, with its long, jet-like fastback design, quickly became Ford's ideal choice for the oval racetrack. In the world of high-speed racing, shape isn't just for show. The Starliner's aerodynamic design created significantly less drag compared to the square-roofed models of the time. The result? A higher top speed on the straightaways, and more importantly, greater stability at speeds over 120 miles per hour. That's what made the Starliner the perfect platform for Ford's NASCAR race cars in the early 1960s. While it wasn't officially branded as a race car, the Starliner was truly Ford's experimental platform during the era of aerodynamic innovation. Unfortunately, when the Starliner was discontinued at the end of 1961, Ford immediately lost a significant advantage. When 1962 models were introduced, the square roof design made a return, and the result was a loss of 3 miles per hour in top speed on the racetrack. In NASCAR, 3 miles per hour could mean the difference between victory and being lapped. In the world of NASCAR, that was a huge gap between winning and falling behind. Ford wasn't going to accept defeat easily. They tried a bold move, attaching fiberglass fastback roofs to convertibles, transforming them into new racehorses with the old-school aerodynamics. It seemed like a good idea, but NASCAR quickly caught on to the trick and banned it outright. All their efforts to maintain the aerodynamic advantage were in vain. Ford had to wait until 1963 to return to a true fastback design, but by that time, the Starliner had already become a thing of the past. That name disappeared completely from Ford's product lineup. No farewell event, no commemorative campaign, and no official explanation. When the Galaxy line moved into 1962, the fastback design, once Ford's secret weapon, was dropped. Instead, a new, more squared-off conservative shape was introduced, which, according to many industry insiders, was considered safe in terms of sales. At that time, Ford was shifting its focus to more mid-size, lighter, and more fuel-efficient models. Names like Fairlane, Falcon, and, of course, the Mustang project that was quietly brewing behind the scenes. In this strategic machine, the Starliner was seen as an experimental branch that lasted too briefly. A car ahead of its time, but one that appeared at the wrong moment. Perhaps it was precisely because it came too soon that it never left the mark it deserved. Only decades later, as collectors and car enthusiasts looked back at the past, did they realize that the Starliner wasn't just a coupe. But imagine, if Ford had kept the Starliner for a few more years, what could have happened? With its aerodynamic fastback design, the powerful 390 engine, and the formidable tri-power setup, the Starliner had the potential to become one of the first muscle cars with a premium style, standing shoulder to shoulder with names like the Pontiac GTO, Dodge Charger, and Chevrolet Chevelle SS. It had the design, it had the speed, it had the aerodynamics, it had the racing potential. All the elements were there. It just lacked the time to prove itself. If the Starliner had entered the golden age of muscle cars from around 1964 to 1970, perhaps today, it would be remembered as one of the original icons of the muscle car era. But history doesn't have an if. The Starliner shone brightly for 2 brief years, and then faded away. And perhaps it's that brevity that has made it special. Not every car gets the chance to live a long life, but very few cars, even if they exist for only a short time, still manage to make people look back. And the Starliner is one of those rare few. If you found the story of the Starliner interesting, don't forget to leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you want to discover more forgotten car models, mysteries in American automotive history, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Every car has a story, and together we'll uncover each page. See you in the next video.